Great, let's begin. Good morning, everybody. I'm Adam Lupel, IPI Vice President. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's virtual policy forum, The Road to Seoul, previewing the 2021 Peacekeeping Ministerial. We'd like to thank our partner for today's discussion, the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea to the UN, represented here by Ambassador Baek Jong-un, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations. Welcome and thank you again for all your excellent and ongoing partnership on these issues. The 2021 United Nations Peacekeeping Ministerial, as everyone knows, will be held in Seoul, Korea on December 7th and 8th upcoming, and it will be the 6th high-level meeting on UN peacekeeping operations convened by member states and the UN Secretariat since the Leaders' Summit on Peacekeeping at UN headquarters in 2014. The objectives of the ministerial conference are to sustain political support for UN peacekeeping and to encourage member states to make concrete pledges of uniformed personnel, military enablers, financial resources, and capacity building support. As many of you know, the ministerial process is spearheaded by 12 member state co-chairs, including the Republic of Korea, and also the UN Secretariat. Over the past year, the co-chairs have organized 4 preparatory conferences in the run-up to the ministerial, each centered around a theme that will feature prominently during next month's formal ministerial conference. These PrepCons focused on peace building and sustaining peace a year ago in November of 2020, partnerships for performance and accountability this summer in July, partnerships, training, and capacity building in September, and the protection of civilians and safety and security just last month in October. In addition to these themes, Korea has also championed technology and medical capacity building as 2 cross-cutting issues for the ministerial conference in Seoul. IPI has been privileged to work with the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea over the past 2 years to support the preparations for the Peacekeeping Ministerial. And we have hosted multiple discussions on some of the key thematic priorities to be discussed. And we also facilitated the preparation of 4 independent white papers that fed into the preparatory conferences. Last week, it is important to note that IPI just published an issue brief previewing the 2021 UN Peacekeeping Ministerial by my colleague, IPI Senior Policy Analyst Daniel Forti, and I'm grateful for his work, which frames some of the discussion today. It summarizes the evolution of the ministerial process and some of the key ideas and pledges covered in the PrepCons, and the independent white papers, and also in the UN's official pledging guide. I recommend it. It's on our website. Thank you, Daniel, for your hard work on that. Really appreciate it. We can all acknowledge that, like so much over the last 2 years, the road to Seoul, so to speak, has not necessarily been an easy one, with many of the preparations for the conferences having to shift because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nevertheless, what has been clear to me and to many is that, like UN peacekeeping operations themselves around the world, all of us in this community have been able to adapt to ensure that the work continues and that we deliver on our responsibilities. But I know that so many of you will be grateful, maybe a little bit relieved to meet in Seoul in person in just a few weeks' time, and there's great anticipation for that. Today we're meeting virtually, and this virtual policy forum then intends to provide a public-facing preview of some of the core issues that will feature during the Ministerial in Seoul. And we have a great panel of speakers with us today. I'll introduce momentarily, but first I will introduce further opening remarks from our partner, Ambassador Baek Jong-un. Ambassador Baek Jong-un is the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of Korea. Ambassador, please, the floor is yours. I think you have a PowerPoint for us. We look forward to hearing your remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Lupel. I appreciate the IPI for hosting today's meeting. I also extend a warm welcome and gratitude to my colleagues from the UNDPO and co-chairs for joining today. This policy forum will offer an overview of the peacekeeping ministerial process so far including 4 successful PrepCon hosted by the co-chairs in the past year. For my part, I will provide a preview of 2021 Seoul UN Peacekeeping Ministerial Conference and some of the key issues to be discussed there. But before that, let me briefly talk about why Korea is hosting this ministerial, what this ministerial and the UN PKO in general means to us. Can we have next slide, please? We are all proudly hosting the ministerial because Korea as a country believes in the power of a multilateral cooperation and partnership to build and maintain peace. We have directly witnessed UN's commitment to peace. 7 decades ago, when our young republic was mired in war, the UN came to restore peace and stability under the Uniting for Peace resolution. Thanks to the assistance from that critical period, Korea was able to bounce back from the ashes of the conflict and achieve democracy, peace, and prosperity in a relatively short period of time. As such, Korea has been committed to playing its part and making contribution toward advancing global peace and security. And we have become a staunch supporter of the UN PKO, which has proven to be one of the most effective tools available to the UN to assist host countries navigate the difficult path from conflict to peace, the path Korea has traveled before. It is therefore truly meaningful that the Republic of Korea is hosting the Peacekeeping Ministerial this year, which happens to be 30 years of Korea's membership to the UN. Since we already had to postpone the ministerial due to the global pandemic, we must seize this opportunity to reaffirm our collective dedication and determination in support of UN PKO. That is why we have chosen United for Peace, Together for a Better Future as the official slogan of the Seoul Ministerial. What Korea has learned from its own experience is that no one can achieve and keep peace alone. It takes constant, concerted efforts of everyone in the international community. That is why a platform like the Peacekeeping Ministerial is essential in finding a solution together. By hosting this global gathering, Korea hopes to renew its commitment to the PKO and also to reinvigorate peacekeeping at a time of unprecedented challenges. Considering the increasingly complex challenges peacekeepers are facing in the field, Korea has chosen technology and medical capacity building as the 2 main themes of this year's ministerial. We believe that a better use and integration of existing and emerging technology can unlock the full potential of peacekeeping operations. For instance, digital technologies offer new opportunities to facilitate mandate delivery by improving situational awareness and enhance protection. In this vein, Korea will lead the efforts to support the UN's digital transformation of peacekeeping strategy. We are also focusing on supporting the Smart Camp project, which will be displayed during the ministerial in Seoul. As for the medical capacity building, it is indispensable to the safety of all peacekeepers. The COVID-19 pandemic in particular has further highlighted the importance of access to medical care as a centerpiece of our accountability to the Blue Helmet. These 2 cross-cutting themes are the game changer of 21st century peacekeeping operations, as they can improve almost all aspects of peacekeeping priority and support the Secretary General's A4P initiative and A4P Plus strategy. I want to take a brief moment to thank co-chairs who have incorporated these 2 main themes throughout the PrepCon. We must build upon these discussions to identify and make concrete pledges at the ministerial to maximize the impact on the ground. Lastly, I want to emphasize that Korea will mainstream the women, peace, and security agenda throughout the ministerial. There will be a separate side event to concentrate on the pending issue of increasing meaningful participation of women in peacekeeping to prevent conflicts and promote sustainable and inclusive peace. Dear colleagues and distinguished guests, allow me to conclude by reiterating that all these priorities and objectives require seamless partnership and cooperation among peacekeeping stakeholders, including host government, financial contributors, UN and regional organizations. The 2021 Peacekeeping Ministerial is aimed at providing exactly that, an opportunity to strengthen partnership to improve PKO. Finally, I want to ask everyone joining today to stay engaged and excited for the Peacekeeping Ministerial. A strong and sustained public support is essential for the Ministerial to gain momentum. I look forward to an engaging conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I always appreciate starting with the why. Why host? Why is this important? And your particular national history really highlights that really starkly. And thank you for your strong support for peacekeeping operations. You say that really is the rationale behind these series of conferences to sustain that strong public support, as you say, and you united for peace, together for a better future. I think that's a great reminder of why we are all engaged in this work. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your leadership. We'll now turn to our panel. We have a great group with us. First, we will hear from Undersecretary General Jean-Pierre Lacroix, Undersecretary General for Peace Operations at the UN Department of Peace Operations. After the Undersecretary General, we hear from Ms. Laura Grant, Deputy Head of the UN Peacekeeping Joint Unit in the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. She will speak on behalf of Bangladesh, Canada, and the UK, who are co-chairs of the PrepCon on sustaining peace and peace building. Then we will hear from Ambassador Jeffrey De Laurentiis, Senior Advisor for Special Political Affairs at the U.S. Mission to the UN, who will speak on behalf of Rwanda and the United States, co-chairs of the PrEP Conference on Partnerships for Performance and Accountability. Next, we will have Ambassador Mark Zellenrath, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to the UN, who will speak on behalf of the Netherlands and Pakistan, co-chairs of the Preparatory Conference on Protection of Civilians and Safety and Security. And finally, we will have Ambassador Mohammed Koba, Deputy Permanent Representative and Charge d'Affaires of the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the UN, who will speak on behalf of Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Japan, co-chairs of the Preparatory Conference on Partnerships, Training, and Capacity Building. We have a lot on the table, but we expect to have a good time for Q&A. So those who are watching in our webinar, please feel free to prepare some questions, and you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to add some questions to the discussion, and hope to get to them after we hear from the panel. But first, we'll hear from Under Secretary General Lacroix. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to start by thanking you for and IPI for organizing this webinar, and also for all the support that was extended by IPI over the last month and in the run-up to the Seoul meeting. And of course, I also want to thank Ambassador Baek and the Republic of Korea for this outstanding organization leading to the Seoul meeting, and my thank also to the co-chairs. I want to start by saying in a few words why the Seoul meeting is so timely, and then I'll switch to what we expect from this meeting. But let me start with the why. As you remember, the Secretary General launched Action for Peacekeeping 3.5 years ago, and at the time, the objective was really to be candid with our member states as to what the key challenges to peacekeeping were, and to try to organize a collective response to these challenges. And that is why we came up collectively with this declaration of shared commitment, and on that basis, a number of important initiatives were taken to address issues such as the protection of our peacekeepers, the improvement of our level of equipment, the improvement of training in peacekeeping, the improvement of the methodology for the purpose of assessing a performance, and what to do with the outcome of these assessments. Another objective was to increase the number of women in peacekeeping operation, and there were many other such objectives. And then 3 years elapsed, and there was a lot of hard work done by all of us, really, and I would include the member states. And I think there were a number of achievements. One of them, which I'm always quite cautious to talk about, but still a reality, is that we managed to achieve a downward trend in the number of peacekeepers killed as a result of hostile attacks from 2017 to now. The other one is that we have made a number of progress in improving equipment, and we have significantly increased the number of women in peacekeeping, both in police component as well as in the military. I believe that there were also a lot of efforts made regarding medical support, and also we are much better equipped to assess performance prior to deployment, but also during deployment, and we are also better at addressing issues having to do with performance. Having said this, today is, as I said, 3.5 years after the launching of A4P. And a few months ago, we decided that the time had come to take stock of what had been achieved and what were the areas where more work was needed. So we made a thorough assessment of these two aspects, and we came up with what we call A4P+, which is our implementation strategy for A4P over the next 2 years. A4P+ is based on a number of priorities that were highlighted as the key areas on which more work needs to be done. There are 7 of these priorities plus 2 cross-cutting areas, and I want to go through them very quickly. The first priorities is always the same, and even though it's probably the most difficult to achieve, it's important to emphasize the primacy of politics and how critical it is to the success of peacekeeping, what I call the ultimate success, which is where we have built the condition for our gradual and smooth departure. The primacy of politics implies more support from our member states to political efforts and a more united international community, particularly a more united Security Council in support of these efforts. Then we have a number of other priorities that are more related to the short-term and medium-term improvement of the effectiveness and impact of peacekeeping. One of these priorities is a more integration. In other words, how to foster a more integrated way of working within the different components of our peacekeeping operation, but also with the other partners operating on the ground. And of course, integration applies to a number of things: planning, communication, the collection of information, but also action based on our assessment of the threats and issues on the ground. The third priority is what we call capabilities and mindset. In other words, the improvement, continuous efforts to further improve our capabilities, but also a strong emphasis on mindset, because you can have the best capabilities in the world if the mindset is not there, if the right understanding of the Chapter 7 mandate in those missions with the Chapter 7 mandate, a so-called robust mandate, is not there, then we're not likely to achieve results. And I'll go back later to the issue of capabilities, because it's obviously a very important aspect of the Seoul meeting. The fourth priority is what we call accountability to peacekeepers, and it has to do with improving their working conditions, but also improving their safety and security, which continues to be a critical priority for us. And that would also include fighting against impunity in relation to the crimes committed against peacekeepers. The fifth priority, we call it accountability of peacekeepers, and it has to do both with performance, how to make sure that we accurately assess performance, and that we take adequate measures to deal with issues of low performance when they occur, but how do we better recognize outstanding performance? But accountability of peacekeepers also has to do with a very, very important priority, which is conduct and discipline, including the fight against sexual exploitation and abuse. As you know, we recently had to make a difficult decision, which was the repatriation of an entire contingent from one of our missions as a result of allegations of ACA, serious ones. And I think it's reflective of the fact that we still have more to do, that we're not out of the wood. And personally, I never believed that we were out of the wood when it comes to fighting SCA. And I believe that this has to be also very strong emphasis during the Seoul meeting, and a very strong emphasis and focus after the Seoul meeting in the continuation of our efforts. Then we have a sixth priority, which is communication. How do we improve communication from our mission, from us, about what peacekeeping does, but also how do we improve the fight against fake news, misinformation, which is a growing threat to our mission and one that needs a more effective effort. And finally, the last priority is about improvement of our relation with the host countries, which is an issue that is quite challenging in a number of missions. It's actually an increasingly important challenge, and one where more efforts are needed, both from the host countries as well as from our mission, but more importantly from our member states, because we need to be supported when we have issues with our host country, and sometimes this support is not there. Now, these 7 priorities come with 2 cross-cutting themes, which are critically important. One of them is the continuation of our effort regarding the WPS agenda. In other words, the continuous increase of the number of women in peacekeeping, which is not only about number, but also about a number of other efforts having to do with mindsets, creating a welcoming environment, and improving the facilities. And the other priority is the cross-cutting priority will be technology. It was already mentioned, and I'm glad that it is one of the key priority areas of the Seoul meeting. We have recently launched a strategy for the digital transformation of peacekeeping, and we do believe that if we get it right, then we can improve with the better use of digital technology. We can improve peacekeeping in a number of key areas. Now, we're really in the initial phase of implementing A4P+, and that will be our top priorities when it comes to cross-cutting issues over the next 2 years. And in that context, the Seoul meeting is extremely timely, because it really comes at the time where we need to galvanize our member states, we need to mobilize our energy, and we need to work hard to achieve the deliverables under each of the key priority areas identified in A4P+. So then I'll switch to what we expect from the Seoul meeting. Well, first of all, as was, I believe, indicated earlier, we haven't had such a high-level meeting on peacekeeping for quite some time, and therefore it's critically important to make sure that the Seoul meeting will be an opportunity for member states to express their strong political support and commitment to peacekeeping. We need that support. Peacekeeping today is challenged. We have made we have achieved a number of improvements in peacekeeping, but at the same time, most of our peacekeeping operations currently experience a significantly deteriorated political and security environment, even if I compare with 1.5 or 2 years ago. I believe this is reflective of the increased conflictuality in today's world, but it's clear that it significantly impacts our peacekeeping operation. As a result of that, we need to enhance our efforts to adapt to these increasingly daunting challenges, and therefore the active implementation of A4P+ will have to rely on the strong partnership between us and the member states and a strong political commitment. The second expectation is about A4P+. I think it was very important to have these prep meetings which really highlighted most of the key priority areas of the A4P+. And again, I thank the co-chairs who were involved in organizing these prep meetings. And we really look forward to the Seoul meeting as an opportunity for a kind of what I call an implicit endorsement of A4P+ and a global commitment to work together again to achieve the key deliverables under A4P+, to achieve our key objectives. And that will require collective work, that will require the active continuation of some of the action that we're undertaking in the various areas that I mentioned, but that will probably imply new initiatives and new action. Then I turn to the third expectation, which is a critically important one, pledges. We have circulated the list of expected pledges from our member states. It's a long list because we have quite a significant number of needs. As you know, initially those ministerial meetings were really focused on pledges. I think it's a good thing that their scope was expanded, but in the context of the challenges that we face, in the context of the fact that we are experiencing significant deficits in capacities, it will be critically important to have as many member states as possible respond to our needs by pledging capacities in the various areas that are highlighted in the list. Let me just go briefly through some of the key capacity needs that we have. One is about mobility and enabling our mission to be reactive and swift. Some transportation mean helicopter units, anything that helps us to be reactive and mobile and nimble would be critically important. Quick reaction capacities like quick reaction forces also critically important. We will need more capacities to counter the increasing threats of IEDs and attacks against our camp and ambushes, and related to that, we will also need more capacity in the areas of intelligence, peacekeeping intelligence, and enabling us to be better at collecting information and processing that information and turning it into action. Medical support is also critical, and we are also very happy that it's been identified as a key priority at the Seoul meeting. And we look forward to having support in that area, in those areas as well. I could go on, but let me say that in addition to capacities, we also need support in other areas such as training, partnership, and we are ready to examine with our member states a joint project that could help us achieve our goals. So as you see, we have a lot of expectation for the Seoul meeting. Let me just end with one key point. I think it will be critically important to have as many member states represented in Seoul at the highest possible level. That would send a strong signal, and I believe that would be a key condition for the success of that very important meeting. And with this, I'll stop and I'll thank you for your attention.
Excellent. Thank you, Undersecretary General. I think it's a good reminder of why this is so timely, in particular setting it in the context of A4P and A4P+. And I think just to reiterate that one of your final points there is that while it is a good thing that these ministerials, the agenda of these ministerials have expanded, we can't lose sight of the pledges, which was the original purpose of these. And there are mounting needs. As much progress has been made in peacekeeping operations, there are mounting needs, and that needs to be fulfilled in this conference. So thank you so much. In the interest of time, we're gonna switch around our order a little bit. So first, I'm going to go to the U.S. and then go the U.S., then the Netherlands, then UK, then Indonesia, if that's okay. So first, we'll have Ambassador De Laurentiis, please, from the United States mission to the UN. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you to the Republic of Korea and the International Peace Institute for hosting today's meeting. I would also like to thank Rwanda, both for co-hosting the preparatory meeting on partnerships for performance and accountability with us, and for its partnership with the United States as a troop and police contributing country. The US-Rwanda partnership is an example of how member states can work together to develop high-performing, uniform personnel and capabilities in UN peacekeeping operations. Performance, and especially accountability for performance, are key goals of UN peacekeeping reform. This is clear in the Secretary General's Action for Peacekeeping and Action for Peacekeeping Plus initiatives, which the United States strongly supports. The US Rwanda Preparatory Conference focused on how partnerships can advance these goals. We heard voices from UN headquarters, from peacekeeping operations in the field, from major troop and police contributing countries, and from capacity builders. And their wide range of perspectives highlighted three main takeaways. First, although pre-deployment training is necessary, it is not sufficient for performance. Troop and police contributing countries require institutional capacity for force generation, for self-sustainment, and to increase the deployment of women. To achieve this, troop and police contributing countries need long-term sustainable partnerships, not one-off training initiatives. Second, operational capacity alone does not lead to effective protection of civilians. Training must focus on the rules of engagement and practical guidance for protection of civilians. And troops and police must have the necessary technology for situational awareness to protect both themselves and civilians. Sustainable partnerships can strengthen these capacities. However, the UN must also empower mission leadership to hold troops and police accountable if undeclared caveats or risk-adverse mindsets impede protection of civilians on the ground. Finally, the practical side of partnerships is equally important. Troop and police contributing countries, as well as capacity builders, rely on the UN to facilitate the creation and maintenance of these partnerships. The UN Secretariat should fully utilize the light coordination mechanism and increase its efforts to pair troop and police contributing countries with capacity builders based on their individual needs and capabilities. So thanks for the opportunity to speak about the importance of partnerships in achieving performance and accountability in UN peacekeeping. And of course, we look forward to participating in the upcoming ministerial in Seoul. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you so much, Ambassador, and great to see the example of the U.S. Rwanda as an example of how partnership can actually increase performance, because that's really the theme of partnership. I think comes throughout all of peacekeeping operations these days, and also the ministerial, and also issues related to A4P+. We will now hear from Ambassador Mark Zellenrath, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Ambassador, please.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thank you for getting us all together today. Really good in the run-up to Seoul. And I quite liked how you started off, Adam. I think you challenged us a little bit to talk a little bit about the why we do what we do. And I think that always bears repeating, especially in the run-up to such an important meeting as Seoul. Now, we've been involved in the preparatory conference together with Pakistan on the protection of civilians and on safety and security. So let me just touch briefly on the why of that. And I think when it comes to protection of civilians in armed conflict, the why is perhaps easiest, right? It's a basic principle of humanity. It is codified in treaties. And of course, it's primarily a responsibility of any host nation, but it's for good reason also part of a core of mandates of peacekeeping missions. And I think we also all vividly remember where that went wrong when we talk about Rwanda, when we talk about Srebrenica. And when it comes to safety and security, that rationale, that why, is I think also very clear, because blue helmets, they cannot keep others safe if they themselves are not safe and secure. So basically, safety and security and protection of civilians are two sides of that same coin. If you strengthen the safety and security of peacekeepers, those peacekeepers can better protect others. And conversely, if you protect civilians better by projecting force, then you also deter blue helmets becoming a target themselves. So let's be aware of this positive interdependence in the run-up, and it really helps to proactively anticipate, deter, and respond to threats before they materialize. And I think that's also today discussed in the Security Council when it comes to prevention. And I think protection and safety and security in that sense also play a major part in that when it comes to peacekeeping. Now, Mr. Lacroix spoke quite at length and very clearly on A4P. Just maybe to touch upon on our own role, it was launched when we were the presidency of the Security Council in 2018. And maybe sort of to go back to that time, Lieutenant General Dos Santos Cruz at that time had published a really alarming report on the need to improve the security of peacekeepers. 2016 and 2017 had seen unprecedented levels of violence against peacekeepers. And Dos Santos Cruz at that time noticed the changed context in which peacekeeping operates. And he wrote, and I'll quote him here, "Overall, the United Nations and troop and police contributing countries need to adapt to a new reality, namely that blue helmet and the United Nations flag no longer offer neutral protection." So peacekeeping environments now, of course, also featured a whole host of new actors compared to when it was just states with armed groups, terrorists, organized crime, street gangs, criminal and political exploitation, other threats. And I think this wake-up call worked now also on the road to Seoul. And since 2018, a lot has changed. So for the better, casualties went down, missions have transformed, but I think also, as Mr. Lacroix said, still a lot does need to be done. And the presentation of A4P Plus really fits in that mold. And I think, Adam, you also said about the difficulties of preparing anything during the COVID pandemic. So launching A4P Plus in the COVID pandemic has been no small feat. And rightly so, a focus now for the upcoming ministerial, and it was certainly also the focus of our preparatory conference that we did together with Pakistan on protection of civilians and on safety and security. And I'll just give you some of the highlights. So there were about 250 participants, which was great. It was much larger than expected. More than 50 countries participated at a high level. And I think also most encouragingly, in the breakout sessions, very many experts joined us from all over the world to share their knowledge on how to make peacekeeping better when it comes to protection of civilians, when it comes to safety and security. And I think for all of us, the most important takeaway there was that it really confirmed that the priorities of A4P Plus, as they were mentioned by Mr. Lacroix, are really the correct ones. So let me highlight a couple of those that were mentioned during our preparatory conference and what it means in practice when we talk about Seoul. The first of all being medical. And Mr. Wane, as you all know, the SRSG of MINUSMA, spoke very clearly on that. And he referred on the importance to improve, for instance, CASEVAC, and asked for medium utility helicopter units for aeromedical evacuations, forward surgical capabilities, like forward surgical teams, standalone light mobile and surgical modules as critical enablers to improve medical. And I think also one of those issues that we also, as the Netherlands, always highlight when it comes to medical and when it comes to peacekeeping is the mental health of peacekeepers, and make sure that when they exit any conflict area, that is tended to as well. Secondly, technology was also mentioned very clearly, and perhaps also here to mention Mr. Wane. For instance, what is meant with technology is better counter UAV capabilities, including appropriate equipment, guidance, personnel, intelligence. And he asked for member states' assistance there, especially related to skilled personnel, which is required to apply that technology, and particularly again in the field of intelligence and maximizing network capacities as envisaged by the smart CAMS model. Aerial intelligence collection assets was mentioned, fixed wing intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance unit, and unmanned aircraft system units. And to effectively address IED threats, of course, very relevant almost in any theater nowadays, he asked for armored personnel carriers, mine-protected vehicles, but also personnel skilled in counter IED materials, and that is certainly something we need to take into account. So better technology, Better training and technology has the potential to really transform what we do now, how we do it, allowing blue helmets to better protect themselves and, of course, civilians. And again, IEDs, I think, are a case in point there. Accountability, which was another A4P plus priority Mr. Wane addressed, specifically the investigation and prosecution of crimes against peacekeepers and the importance of action by the host state in that regard. And I cannot overemphasize the importance of good relations with the host state, and I'm glad to see that this is also a separate priorities under A4P plus. Now, briefly on operational integration as a fourth point that was mentioned during the PrepCon, and there were several speakers that stressed the importance of that operational integration, like the former force commander of MINUSMA, Lieutenant General Dennis Gillespie, who emphasized the need for a solid planning system in the mission as an important condition for operational integration, as well as integrated leadership. And Mr. McLaughlin, former Deputy Chief of Staff of MONUSCO, emphasized the importance of joint patrols, and by that meaning military, police, and civilians together. And CPIS stressed the need for comprehensive integration of efforts within the mission, but also across rotations. An effective exchange of information is, of course, crucial to keep on performing better. And I'll now conclude, Adam. Our contribution to peacekeeping can take many different shapes and forms. And I really want to congratulate here the Secretariat on the excellent job that they have done on the pledging guide for the Peacekeeping Ministerial, which Mr. Lacroix already mentioned. So, of course, do we as a country, we're planning both hard pledges, we're planning soft pledges, we're making a C-130 plane available to MINUSMA. We're also planning to make $500,000 available to IPI to help further and monitor A4P plus like you do now, which is excellent. We'll also continue our support for women, peace and security, LCM, big data mining, medical support, and other various training and capacity building activities. And I think Lieutenant Dos Santos Cruz said it best perhaps in his 2017 report, because no one attacks a stronger opponent. So if we ensure that our blue helmets are properly equipped, well trained, have the correct posture, they won't be easily attacked and they will be able to better fulfill the mandate of the mission. And I'm impressed how people like Mr. Wane continue to demonstrate that every single day. And in Seoul on 7 and 8 December, the international community has really the chance to make important progress on the means we put at the mission's disposal to further improve peacekeeping, as peacekeeping can only be as strong as we, the member states of the United Nations, make it. And I call on everyone here and all member states to take their responsibility in that regard and do their part. So thank you very much, Adam, and participants, for your kind attention.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ambassador. And thank you for that preview of the Netherlands, the pledges that you'll be making, including the partnership with IPI. We really look forward to continuing our work with you on these issues, on protect civilians, on A4P plus, and peacekeeping in general. And I think that this is a good first hand there for the upcoming conference. And just on substantively, I really like this point that you make about positive interdependence, speaking in terms of protection of civilians and safety and security. But I think the same can be said for all these four themes and the cross-cutting issues that are laid out for the ministerial. These are not just sort of separate issues, they are all related. We talk about protection of civilians, of course, accountability, which was discussed by Ambassador De Laurentiis, is critical, training, which we'll discuss in a moment. These are all intermeshed and as you say, positively interdependent. So thank you for that. Excellent. We will now turn to the United Kingdom. Ms. Laura Grant is Deputy Head of the UN Peacekeeping Joint Unit in the United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and she will speak on behalf of Bangladesh, Canada, and the UK co-chairs of the Preparatory Conference on Sustaining Peace and Peace Building. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Adam, and thank you to IPI for convening this webinar today. So on November the 3rd and the 10th, 2020, Bangladesh, Canada, and the United Kingdom co-chaired a virtual preparatory meeting focused on peace building and sustaining peace ahead of the 2021 UN Peacekeeping Ministerial to be hosted in Seoul. The PrepCon brought together over 260 participants from more than 80 UN member states, as well as participation from the UN. And at the PrepCon, we heard from UN Under-Secretary General Jean-Pierre Lacroix in his keynote address, who stressed the importance of transition planning and related capacities and resources and for all stakeholders, particularly UN member states, to recognise all missions as being in transition. So on this theme, the Preparatory Conference identified 3 areas critical to the interface between sustaining peace and peace building and peacekeeping operations for participants to consider. The first of these was women, peace and security in transition context. And we had a breakout session chaired by Canada. The second was institution building and training in transition contexts, and that was chaired by Bangladesh. And the last one was financing in transition contexts, and that was chaired by the UK. So on women, peace and security, the discussion focused on specific pledges that can be made to quantitatively and qualitatively increase the participation of women, particularly in uniformed roles. And the participants identified barriers to women's recruitment, deployment and effectiveness in peace operations, including long-standing issues like cultural biases, as well as new challenges such as the coronavirus pandemic. In addressing these barriers, participants underscored the importance of WPS national action plans, the opportunities arising from the ever-expanding WPS CHODS network, and potential next steps following the adoption of UN SCR 2538 on women in peacekeeping. The breakout session on institution building and training emphasised the role of peacekeepers in building effective and accountable national institutions in the host country, including by providing training to local security forces and civilians, based on assessment and coordinated engagement of all stakeholders to ensure sustainability of peace operations. 2 major areas were identified for potential pledges: A, security sector, so military, police and other paramilitary or civil components, and B, the civilian sector, including rule of law, judiciary, correction services and human rights. Some structural and situational challenges were also identified, which could affect smooth transitions, such as funding gaps, issues with planning and coordination, and the expertise and capacity of national governments in leading and coordinating peace-building efforts. In the third session on financing in transition contexts, delegates heard from the Transitions Joint Project Team, who set the scene by outlining the financing challenges faced in transitions. And these challenges included a fall in the share of ODA allocated to peace building, an apparent drop-off in international attention, and the need to ensure that available funding is spent efficiently. And this team also highlighted various UN initiatives to address the challenges, including the Peace Building Fund, Global Focal Point on the Rule of Law, and the UNDP DPPA joint project. And the discussions in this breakout session focused on the following areas where participants believe progress can be made. So the critical role of the Peace Building Fund in responding rapidly to peace building requirements, and assessed contributions to the PBF are being discussed, but there is not yet consensus amongst member states. The need for planning for transitions to start at least 2 years ahead of implementing a transition, and that the planning should cover at least 5 years following departure. Programmatic funding in peacekeeping budgets, which can support transitions, but can be limited and short term in filling the peace building gap by itself. And peacekeeping missions are often not best placed to carry out longer term peace building activities. Therefore, increased transparency, accountability and coordination with UN country teams is required. And then an area requiring further research is the economic impact on local economies as peacekeeping missions leave. And there is a role here for IFIs to play in contributing to more predictable, sustainable funding, particularly with their ability to support national budgets. And participants also discussed alternative funding, such as engaging the private sector, bringing in non-traditional peacebuilding actors and working with national and regional stakeholders. South-South and triangular cooperation could provide fresh thinking to peace-building approaches, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. So the concluding remarks from the Preparatory Conference highlighted the evolving nature of peace operations, where rather than engaging in military operations, security forces are required to protect civilians and create conducive environments for implementation of a socio-economic development agenda leading to sustaining peace. The co-chairs therefore encouraged the participating member states to return to the ministerial with pledges focused in the following areas: strengthening of national institutions supported by effective training, a gender perspective in all areas of peace building, and finally, proposals to address budgetary constraints of peace operations, as well as funding gaps in peace building. And the participants also called on the UN and other relevant stakeholders to increase engagement with women and civil society when formulating their conflict management strategies in mission transition contexts. It was a great pleasure to work with our colleagues from Bangladesh and Canada in co-hosting this PrepCon, and we're looking forward to the resulting pledges and discussions in plenary session at the Peacekeeping Ministerial next month. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the really quite thorough readout of the Preparatory conference. And I think this focus on transitions is really critically important and fascinating. The idea of that to think about that all missions are always in transition, and that this is a long-term endeavor to plan transitions beginning early, at least 2 years, but also long-term 5 years after leaving. And thinking about that again in terms of the idea of positive interdependence of all these issues, it's really ultimately about thinking holistically about UN integrated presences, thinking about integration as one of the key priorities for 8.4P+, and thinking about the evolving nature of UN peacekeeping, and listening to you, it does feel like this is progress. This is progress, and it's really to be commended. I also just want to emphasize your point about women, peace, and security, and then the critically important point that it's not just about quantitative, it's about qualitative, and it's also about addressing the barriers to that participation. IPI's excellent Women, Peace, and Security program run by Phoebe Donnelly and Gretchen Baldwin, my colleagues, has done some excellent research on that, and I can recommend that to you on IPI's website. Fantastic. Thank you so much. We will now turn to Indonesia. Ambassador Mohammed Koba, Deputy Permanent Representative and Chargé d'Affaires of the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the UN, speaking on behalf of Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Japan, co-chairs of the Preparatory Conference on Partnerships, Training, and Capacity Building. Ambassador, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Excellencies, distinguished participants, allow me to begin by thanking the Republic of Korea and IPI for preparing this meeting. I'm delivering this summary on behalf of Indonesia and my fellow co-hosts, Japan and Ethiopia. Our preparatory meeting covered the importance of enhancing training and capacity building to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of UN peace operations. As the face of conflict changes with the emergence of new challenges such as intercommunal conflict, terrorism, and pandemic, peacekeepers need to adapt and innovate to respond to these ever-growing challenges. To this end, training and partnership are essential to enhance peacekeeping operations. During the two-day event, our panels explored lessons learned and best practices on identifying needs in training and capacity building, the role of women in peacekeeping operations, medical capacity, and exploring the way forward for partnership in training and capacity building. On this note, allow me to share the following point. First, improving standardization in training and capacity building. This was vividly elaborated by the Commandant of Ethiopia's International Peace Support Training Institute, as he emphasized the importance of institutionalized training and capacity building programs in which outcomes from post-deployment assessment feedback into pre-deployment training and the benefits of mission-specific capacity building programs. Accordingly, on the panel on medical capacity, the panelists from Morocco presented the need for each TPCC to coordinate their medical needs and standards to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of training and capacity building programs. Standardization in training is also essential in preparing future medical trainers from TPCCs as noted by the representative of the UN Division of Healthcare Management and Occupational Safety and Health. To improve coordination, the UN Secretariat introduced LCM, in which currently 17 members share training calendars and express intention to expand the mechanism to provide information in French, as well as to develop a roster of human and financial resources. My second point is responding to challenges in training and capacity building. The panelists from IPI identified challenges in training caused by supplier-led program, short-term training, the limited opportunity of in-mission training and follow-up, as well as difficulty to obtain TCC's needs due to political sensitivities. To address these challenges, he mentioned that long-term investment by training providers and multiple deployments of those who train are desired. On the panel discussing the role of women in peacekeeping, the panelists from the Indonesian National Police and the Ethiopian Ministry of Defense call for the need to integrate gender perspective and gender mainstreaming in the training program, recruitment process, as well as the chain of command. They also emphasize the need to improve suitable services in mission areas. UNMIS police commissioner from Fiji provided an example through integrating lessons learned derived from repatriated women peacekeepers to improve the upcoming deployments. Above all, she emphasized that a gender-sensitive working environment, as well as improvement of safety and security of peacekeepers, will contribute positively to the number of women peacekeepers. Representative of the Directorate General Armed Forces Medical Services of India stated that medical training should be treated as a never-ending process. He further emphasized that the situation presented during training could never match the real-life situation in the field. Hence, in-mission training is critical. My third and last point is the importance of regional partnership in training and capacity building. Representative of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force and Ambassador Sete Tilahuan of Ethiopia pointed out the positive impact of the TPP framework, which benefits not just the host country, but also the region. Ambassador Tilahuan also pointed out the importance of AU-UN cooperation in promoting decentralized planning to reflect region-specific field situation in training. On the same panel, the representative of the UN Department of Operational Support elaborated the development of the TPP framework under COVID-19 situation, which includes both remote and hybrid training. He also introduced the AU-UN partnership and noted that the relationship has been developed from capacity building to interoperability and mutual complementarity. Excellencies, distinguished participants, in the end, the most important thing for us is to ensure that these lessons and experiences identified in the preparatory meetings could be implemented in the field. As highlighted by numerous speakers and participants in our preparatory meeting, training and capacity building in peacekeeping operation could benefit from operational integration and enhanced partnership, especially at the regional level. We emphasize the importance of maximizing the effectiveness of the upcoming Peacekeeping Ministerial, including through applicable pledges and participation at the ministerial level. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I mean, I think this last point that you make, thinking about training and partnerships together, again, this theme that I think I'm hearing here about the interdependence of all these different issues, and also that this is not a short-term endeavor. This has to be long-term when we're thinking about training, not just in terms of investment, but in practice. It's about post-deployment lessons learned and being sure that those are implemented later. It's about in-mission training, it's about mission-specific training, and it's about continuing this process in partnership with others, both bilaterally and regionally and internationally. So really appreciate those thoughts, and it's, I think it threads through all the themes that we've been discussing. Excellent. We've got about a half an hour now for some Q&A. We've got a few questions, comments queued up from a couple participants. First, I have Allison Giffen of Civic, I believe, is in the room. Allison, are you available? Yes. There you go. Allison, please. I think we'll gather a couple of these questions, and then I would also encourage people that are watching or in the webinar to use the Q&A function to insert other questions, and then we can go back to the panel and have a bit around afterwards. Great. Allison, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you to the Republic of Korea, IPI, the panelists for hosting and participating in this important webinar and for giving me the opportunity to ask a question. The Center for Civilians and Conflicts Field Research and the white paper on peacekeeping performance that I wrote in advance of the preparatory conferences highlighted two capabilities that are linchpins to effective peacekeeping, and particularly important to peacekeeping safety and security and protection of civilians. And those two capabilities were mobility and also assessment, planning, decision-making, and evaluation. A ministerial level conference can significantly address these gaps, for example, through the pledging of air assets and highly skilled, well-trained military staff and police officers with appropriate language skills to serve in peacekeeping analysis and planning cells. However, UN peacekeeping missions are integrated, as we all know, and as such, member states must also take steps to strengthen the integrated assessment, planning, decision-making, and evaluation capabilities in the mission. These include joint mission analysis centers, joint operation centers, special planning units, and CPAS, et cetera. I'd be grateful if speakers could comment on whether the Secretary General and or their governments are prepared to make public political commitments at the ministerial to strengthen these capabilities by supporting them in the mandating, budgeting, and policy processes that happen in New York in the Security Council, the Fifth Committee, Fourth Committee, and of course inside the Secretariat. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. I think that that's a very pointed question. It reminds me, I'm really happy to have Allison here as a member of civil society. One of the goals of IPI is to bring civil society into the conversation. As I might note, as at this point we're on Zoom, so that is a horizontal relationship. But I'm across the street from the UN, and civil society remains without access to the Secretariat these days. So it's really important in these sorts of environments that we can bring civil society voices together, and not just civil society voices, but also youth. We're committed to intergenerational conversations here. And so we have two students from university students from the Republic of Korea here that have asked for the floor, and I'm happy to pass on to Ji-Yu Lee first. Ji, you? Please, the floor is yours.
Can I do first?
Yeah, of course, sure.
Okay, thank you. Hello, this is Wonnie Choi, the youth peacekeeper of the 2021 UN Peacekeeping Ministerial in Seoul. I would like to ask some questions that I agree that UN peacekeeping operation continues to develop, and efforts to build partnerships between countries are important. However, I think what is more important than the development of peacekeeping itself is the treatment of many PKO agents participating in peacekeeping activities. After all, peacekeeping is possible because there are PKO agents participating in this activity. So firstly, I wonder how the treatment of PKO agents who sacrifice only with a sense of mission and peace spirit in this activity is improving. And also, I wonder if the treatment of the UN PKO agents dispatched from each country is at the discretion of the country, or if there isn't any common treatment provided by the UN. And lastly, I was preparing the questions about suggesting to introduce a mental care system that can maintain psychological stability for those who devote themselves to peace in fields, because it is said that UN PKOs are dispatched to the areas where hostilities have ended to some extent, but war and unexpected risks can occur at any time. So I thought areas where PKO agents do peacekeeping activities cannot be completely free from the anxiety. But thankfully, Mark Zenerath mentioned about the importance of mental health care. So I would like to end my Q&A turn by emphasizing to consider introducing the mental care system for the peacekeepers to relieve psychological anxiety. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I mean, this issue of treatment and mental health care is such an important one. I really appreciate you re-emphasizing it. IPI has also done some research on that. Excellent report by Nami Dirasa on IPI's website that I can also recommend. And it's really good to hear that this is an issue that's beginning to be spoken about openly. It was always spoken about maybe quietly, but it's now being spoken about more openly. And it's a really, again, progress. Welcome. Great. We'll also then turn to, is that to you, Lee? Is that also, you have a question as well?
Oh, thank you. This is Jiu Lee from Youth Peacekeeper, and thank you for first offering opportunity to join this webinar. It's a great honor to take a glimpse into this UN Peacekeeping Ministerial. I highly agree with the point that by better integrating both technology and medical capacity building into this peacekeeping operations, missions can be implemented more effectively. So since technology is also regarded as one of the critical points as well in this session, I would like to ask a question. What would be the achievements regarding this technological implementation, and what would be the limitations regarding the introduction of digital technology in the realm of peacekeeping operation? For instance, like how could the international society overcome the capability gaps when partnering with other member states? So I would like to ask some questions regarding this area. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. These are really, really concrete, excellent questions on treatment, on questions about whether there's commitments from the Secretary to member states to improve capabilities, not just in terms of pledges, but also in terms of mandating and guidelines. And then this question about technology. How would you define the achievements that coming out of the success? How would you define success coming out of the conference, and what are some of the limitations around that? And I'm going to add one additional question from the Q&A before we go back to the panel, and this relates to POC, and an important one from our colleague Gay Rosenblum Kumar, who asks, how can member states better support skills training in unarmed methods and support for more cooperation and integration and implementation of unarmed strategies in protection and peacekeeping planning, especially in transitions? I think that's a really, really important point. Excellent. So why don't we, I think maybe we should go to Undersecretary General Lacroix first, if you're still with us, to make any responses to these questions, if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you very much for those questions. A couple of comments. First of all, I believe the first question was about the further enhancement of the capacity of our mission to plan jointly. And as I indicated earlier, the improvement of integration within our mission is a top priority. And it applies, among other things, it very much applies to planning. Now, at the global sort of more strategic level, we now have a tool which we've rolled out in our mission, which is called the CPAS. It's an acronym for Comprehensive Performance Assessment System. We could have called it a Comprehensive Planning and Assessment System as well, because it's really about making sure that there is common understanding and agreement within the mission and across the different components of that mission on the key objectives that are critical to achieve mandate delivery. And the CPAS is really there to help mission develop this common priority areas, this common objective, but also it provides tools for our mission to assess the extent to which they are delivering on these key objectives. Now, in addition to that, we have a number of missions, particularly our multi-dimensional mission, that have made significant efforts in building cells where planning is integrated and the collection of information is integrated and their processing also is. But I believe that we need to make more efforts in that regard. And I think we need to make these efforts not only at the strategic level, at the mission headquarter level, but also at the local level. And that implies let's say the mainstreaming of an integrated mindset. And also making sure that we have truly integrated presence even at the local level, which is sometimes a challenge, particularly in the most difficult environment. So definitely more support is required in that area. Now, regarding mental health, it's a very important element in our efforts to improve medical support to our peacekeepers. It's a part of, I mentioned one of the key priorities for peacekeepers, which is accountability to peacekeepers. And within that rubric, the enhancement and further improvement of medical support is critical. And there is a deliverable that has to do with the improvement of mental health. And I believe that there is currently, I know that there currently is a strategy that is being developed within the Secretariat on mental health, on the mental health of our peacekeepers. Now, regarding digital technology, the question by Ms. Lee, well, we do believe that the effectiveness of our peacekeeping operation in a number of areas could be significantly enhanced by making better use of digital technology. But in order to achieve that, we needed to have a clear understanding of what was needed and what were the key priority areas where we could really make the best use of digital technology. And we identified a number of those. One of them is the improvement of security and safety of our peacekeepers, which goes hand in hand, by the way, with the improvement of our ability to better protect civilians. The other one is the improvement of our ability to collect information and to better plan jointly. So it's very much related to the issue that was raised in the first question. And another one is about the improvement of our communication. With the better use of digital technology, we can better communicate in a more networked way, in a more effective way, and also better counter disinformation. But all of this will require a global effort aimed at improving what I call the digital literacy of our mission and of our peacekeepers, and frankly, of ourselves. So there is also cross-cutting effort that will have to be made to achieve that, and it's very much part of the strategy for the digital transformation of peacekeeping. And finally, the question regarding unarmed strategies. Well, we are absolutely convinced that protection of civilian has various components. It's not only about using the military component and the police. It has to be successful. It also has to be an integrated, comprehensive approach where, in addition to our uniformed personnel creating, and making the best efforts that they can to create a security environment and engagement with communities, making sure that we build trust with them, that we and here the increased presence of women in peacekeeping is critically important. Making sure that we rely on members of the civil society, on women's group and youth group to create better conditions for local conflict resolution, to be better informed and to better understanding what the needs of these communities are in response to their threats. All of this is critically important, and I do believe that this requires continuous efforts to develop our expertise. And here I believe that the support and help not only of member states, but also from a number of NGOs and civil society organizations can be tremendously helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think we'll just go back through the panel if people have comments, further comments on the questions and such. Why don't we turn to go back to our original order and go back to the UK. Laura Grant, please. The floor is yours if you'd like to respond.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'll try and go around all the questions in turn. So firstly, on integration. So the UK, obviously, we pay our assessed contributions towards the peacekeeping budget, but we also contribute extra budgetary funding as well. And this benefits CPAS, which Mr. Lacroix has just spoken about. And we also have funding for Unite Aware, and that's to improve situational awareness, tracking and monitoring of incidents. So our XP funding is used hopefully to enhance mission performance and integration and to aid with data collection and information flow. We also have a small number of military staff officers that the UK deploys into strategic and mission planning leadership roles in several peacekeeping operations. And that is UK expertise, hopefully contributing to mission performance. And it also gives the UK a greater understanding of how missions are operating on the ground. And something that we do from my team here in London is we conduct strategic mission assessment tool visits of different peacekeeping operations timed ahead of mandate renewals, where we conduct our own review of the peacekeeping operation, engage with senior figures in mission, and then use that information and the interviews that we do to inform our negotiations for Security Council resolutions. So hopefully we're improving mission performance and taskings on a regular basis through our permanent seat on the Security Council. We have recently deployed, well, in the last 12 months into MINUSMA. So the UK has a long history of contributing troops to peacekeeping operations, but MINUSMA is a more recent contribution for us. And drawing from that experience, I'm really pleased that we're going to announce a package of pledges in the medical capability sphere at the Peacekeeping Ministerial, and that will include something on mental health. But I'll pause there because I know that our Minister for the Armed Forces wants to announce that in person in Seoul, but there will be some pledges meeting UN requirements coming up in December. And then lastly, on unarmed approaches, as part of our extra budgetary funding, we do fund £250,000 for projects on unarmed approaches to the protection of civilians.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I know that Ambassador De Laurentiis had to depart, but I believe we have Karen Smith is online to respond for the United States. Is that correct? Why don't we? She might or Carolyn Smith. No. Well, let's move to. I know we do. Ambassador Zellenrath also had to leave, but I see Robert van Dijk is here, representative from the Kingdom of the Netherlands UN mission. Please, Robert, would you like to respond to some of these questions, particularly perhaps on protection of civilians or other issues?
Thank you, Adam. Yes, and thank you, Alison, for that very pertinent question about air assets and also how things are addressed in the 4th and the 5th Committee. As you know, I mean, we've worked very closely with CIVIC during our time in the Security Council, where their advice was very, very helpful. So we worked very, very closely with them. So Alison knows probably everything I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I mean, like the Netherlands has been, of course, in peacekeeping involved in the mobility question. We've had helicopters in Gao, and we're now involved in a rotation team for C-130. I mean, mobility is at the essence. I mean, you heard that also during our PrepCon from SRSG Wayne was also asking for that in many different aspects. I mean, of course, to exert protection, but also for CASEVAC. And it's just much easier if you have bigger camps and can work from there than having small camps that you have to protect everywhere. So yes, one of my big disillusionments when I was in the council was to notice the disconnect between writing down the mandates for the missions and the 5th Committee. I think a lot needs to be done on that. A lot of countries don't want to put their money where their mouth is. And I think we really need to learn to better support the Secretariat in their already difficult work. I really enjoyed the interventions by the youth speakers, and I'm happy to see that they also addressed the issue that Ambassador Zanenraad also addressed of mental health, and that the stigma around that is slowly disappearing. I think still a lot of work needs to be done, but it's an important issue. And on technology, I think also a very pertinent question. Technology can be a lot of different things. I mean, it can be big things like the smart camp that South Korea will be, the Republic of Korea will be showcasing in the during the Peacekeeping Ministerial. It can also be really simple, small things like telemedicine, for example. You know, just having soldiers that are far away in different parts of huge countries. I mean, like Mali, you cannot imagine, it's like as big as Western Europe nearly. And they're everywhere. So then to be able to connect with a doctor by app or through Zoom, that already can be a huge help. So technology can be from very big to very small, I think. And we definitely, it can be a game changer, like Ambassador Zanenraad said. And I think we need to explore where we can use technology effectively, also knowing, of course, the limitations to training that people have, or even internet access in camps. So we do certainly have challenges there. Then perhaps the last question about unarmed protection. It was also during our PrepCon a lot of discussion around that, and I think one of the most interesting things I've heard on that is actually, if you think of it, military are trained to win wars. They're not trained to protect civilians. I mean, that doesn't normally is not included in their training. So it's really, really important to look at different ways of how we can effectively work with communities without having an armed approach. And of course, keeping a clear mind on do no harm in that respect. Thank you, Adam.
Great, thank you, Robert. I'll now turn to Ambassador Muhammad Koba of Indonesia for any final response to the questions. Ambassador Koba?
No responding. Thank you. As you know, during our time in the council, we initiated resolution 2538 on women in peacekeeping. We are actually concerned that this is still yet to be fully implemented, and we remain committed to push for it. This resolution is not only the first resolution on women peacekeepers, but also cover multiple aspects of their deployment, including their safety and security, as well as training. We do believe that training is beneficial in preparing personnel, including their mental state. We see this as sort of a preventive method in maintaining their mental health by preparing them as best as we could. Hence, training and capacity building needs to reflect the situation in the field. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for all these responses to the questions from the panel. I'll now turn back to the Republic of Korea, to Ambassador Bae Jong-in for some final comments. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you, Dr. Lupel. Just briefly responding to the questions, how we care and treat our peacekeepers. I think protection and safety of peacekeepers is our common priority. And as you can see, the themes of the 2021 Peacekeeping Ministerial are in a way shaped to highlight this. As mentioned, that the medical capabilities as well as technology, these are, I think, could be made use to improve and enhance the protection of peacekeepers. And as I mentioned, I also want to emphasize the smart camp, I think, which can also in many ways improve the safety and even well-being of peacekeepers. On the other hand, that all these are in a way aimed at also enhancing the performance of our peacekeepers, and not just only just safety. So hopefully these will have some benefits. And also the technology, I think there are two sides, I mean, negative and positive sides of technology. And our job is to minimize the negative side and maximize the positive side. And the UN's digital transformation technology, the strategy is a step in the right direction. Is we are not in that strategy, I think we are very careful to protect certain areas like privacy. And on the other hand, we understand the danger of this. So overall, I really appreciate today's engaging discussions, and which is I find very enriching, especially input from the youth as well. So I want again everyone joining today to stay engaged and excited for the Peacekeeping Ministerial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I do agree. I think it's been a very rich conversation, and I think it's a real testament to all the preparation that has gone into this ministerial with the 4 preparatory conferences and all the research and convening and thinking that's going into it. It's I think we're really big setup for success, and we're already seeing member states here previewing some of the pledges, which is really great to see. And I think that our goal is to sustain commitment and excitement for the upcoming ministerial. I believe we've done that, and it's thanks to all of you. So I really thank you again for your partnership, to all of you, and thank you to our audience for staying engaged. And stay tuned, and we'll see some of you in Seoul. Great, take care. Thank you so much.